Welcome to this Pastel My Business online webinar.
In today's webinar, we will deal with recurring invoices and how to allocate payments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with recurring invoices and how to set that up in My Business Online. Okay, so I'm going to log in. In My Business Online, what's happened is we've basically made recurring invoices available, which make it easier for you in the end. So let's say expenses or even customers that happen on a continuous basis. You can actually go and set that up and tell the system that every month this is exactly what happens. So that means you won't have to every month go and generate an invoice for something that is going to be the same, whether it be weekly, daily, monthly, or every second month. You can actually tell the system that this is going to happen every second month. But you also have the option to change it if there are any changes, and I'm going to show you exactly how that is done. You go Customer Recurring Invoices. From there, you'll be able to view all your draft invoices. But what we'll do is we'll select Add Recurring Invoices. Okay, so on the current screen, I'm just going to go through all the tabs. You'll be able to select your different customers. So I'm going to start with that customer. Your recurring invoice numbers. So this will automatically be generated from the My Business Online. There will be an invoice number allocated to that. Your reference, this reference is optional. You can put in any description or anything for the customer to know that this is a specific reference or even a time date. You've also got a discount that you can enter. So if there is a discount applicable to the customer, then we've also got a start date frequency. So your start date will be when do you want this actually the recurring invoices to start. And then also you've got your frequency. So if you just have a look at all the frequencies we do have available, you have it for every day, every week, every second week, so your fortnight, every month, second month, third month, sixth month, every year. So I mean you can even go to a point where, let's say there's an invoice that only happens once a year, you can go and set it up so just to ensure that, you know, even if it comes to that period, you might not have forgotten about it because the system would have done it for you. Then from there, you can also put in an end date. So when you'd like this to end. So let's say you would like it to, you guys agree upon a year contract that you'll supply a year to this one of your customers. You'll go and set up a start date and then an end date. So when it needs to stop the recurring invoices. Due date, so this is according to the terms with your customers, so whether it be 30, 60, 90 days or immediate, you can actually go and set that up. Then you've also got when should that be applicable, so days from the date of invoice, your current month or the following month or end of the current month. So you can select, normally it is date of invoice, so 30 days thereafter, otherwise you've got the other numerous options. Then quite important, you've got when you're creating your invoice, either you can do it as a draft or alternatively automatic. As draft, we refer to it as, it saves it as a draft. Each and every month it will actually generate this, and from there you can actually go and put that in an invoice. And if you need be, you can actually edit that, and then from there you can send it on or email it to the client. So a draft is not an official as yet. It means it is going to create it for you. However, you would need to process it and send it through to the client. On the other hand, we have automatically. By automatically, we specify that the system is going to do it for you. So you set up a specific date. You tell the system when it needs to occur. And what will happen is it will automatically send out that email to the client. So what you need to do is you need to ensure that the clients that you do want the invoices to be sent by email, that they have got an email address set up. So if they have an email address set up, what will happen is the system will send it through on the relevant date to the customer to that specific email. So the difference is the one you'll need to process yourself, the automatic one is the system does it for you. Then you've also got an option to include yourself as a CC, so in the email. So it will send it to the client and you'll also be CC'd in it. So just to make sure that the invoice is sent, however it would do that. Okay, then from there you'd be able to put in your items, and from there your descriptions and quantity. So what we're going to do is let's set up an actual one. So I've selected one of my customers. My recurring invoice number is going to be according to what the system allocates. My reference will be, let's say, March. Discounts for this client, let's say 15%, and ensure that active is always ticked. If that is not ticked, then the system won't actually take that recurring invoice into consideration. From there, my start dates, I want it applicable as at, let's say, the end of March. And then also the frequency, so I'd like this to occur each and every month. End date, so I'm going to work in years, so what I'll do is actually just go and change it so that it ends in a year's time. Due date, so I'd like my payments to be made within 60 days. So this purely depends on the terms that you've agreed upon with your customer as well. Okay, mine will be date of invoice. Okay, and what I'd like to do is I'd actually like this to be automatic because we have a set agreement on what will be sent to this client each and every month. Okay, so from there I'll go and indicate my item. I will go and select exactly what it is. So from there put in the quantity of 50. And what's great as well is even if you're selecting a service, so let's say it's Saturday classes, you can put in a quantity of 8. You can also go and extend that line and say that it's Saturday, let's say the specific date, a 2-hour session. So what's great is in that invoice, you can actually go and sum up, okay, when those sessions will be and which Saturdays and what everything they'll entail, if that is set. Otherwise, if you want, you can actually just keep it as your items and then save it as a draft and then go and add those services if that is added. So what I'm going to do is for this purposes, I'm only going to put in my actual inventory items. From there, I'm going to put in a quantity. Okay, so then that's enough of that invoice. So what I'll do is immediately after, okay, I'll say I want to include myself as a CC, so I'd like to see that email. And you can also set up an email signature, which is quite nice. So what will happen is there will automatically be your email signature. So let be my normal email for my Microsoft. I can actually just go and paste in there and then just say, okay. So let's just do that. Okay, so that would be my signature. From there, I can actually just save it. And I have set up that it will do it automatic. So on that specific date, that invoice will be created, and the system actually indicates it. So as soon as you go into your recurring invoices, you will see that it's got the relevant customer, and it will also say whether it's automatic or as a draft. And it will also tell you whether it's been run or not run for the specific date. So exactly the same. I'm going to just show you again on a draft perspective. Okay, so exactly, you'll go and select the specific customer. From there, you can put in the reference. Like I'm saying, that reference is optional, so you can put in any description that will work for you and the customer. From there, put in the discount. Then the start date, so when it needs to start. So let's say it's going to start already now. And then let's say even every second month, this needs to occur. Okay, and then the end date. So I'm going to run in a year again, so I'll go and select 2013, the 10th of March. Due date, the T on this client, and then date of invoice. Like I said, you've got other options there as well. Okay, and then I'm going to do it as a draft. I want to include myself as a CC, and then I can also click there again to add my email signature. From there, I can add my item. I'm going to just put 50. Okay, so that will be the save that. Okay, so they're automatically, so you'll see as soon as you go customer recurring invoices, you'll see all your recurring invoices indicated there, and you'll also see what they were saved as draft automatic. So what will be required in the draft option, because you're telling the system don't do it automatically for me, I will do it myself. You'll actually go into customers, tax invoices. When you are ready, you'll go add tax invoice. You'll go and select your relevant customer. From there, we'll go, so let's say select that specific customer. And then what's great is you can actually, because you can link your quotes and recurring invoices, you can just drop down. Let me quickly have a look. Okay, now because the recurring invoices is only due in the next, well, either tomorrow, it's not going to allow me, but when you click down on your from quote or recurring invoice, once you've created that draft and it is due date, you'll be able to drop down there because the system, you've indicated to the system that it's only going to happen on the 10th. You'll drop down on there and then it will actually bring up that recurring invoice number and you can allocate it. So automatically it will populate all your items at the bottom. And then from there, you'd be able to process it or process prints or process an email. So it will originally bring what you have in that draft set up. And then if you require any other additional fields, you can actually just go and add it to that. Just note that if you do add additional things to that recurring invoice, well, to that specific invoice for that month, the system will still default to how the recurring invoice was set up. So if you do want to make changes to that recurring invoice, you'd actually need to go to Customer, Recurring Invoice, you'd select Edit, and then you'd go add additional line to that. But this is only in the case where something becomes if it happens on a continuous basis. So they do want that certain item or that service on a continuous basis. Otherwise, if it's just for that month, what you can do is just when you're converting that the recurring invoice into your tax invoice, you can just go and add that line, and then what will happen is the next month or the following month, depending how you've set it up, it will automatically only bring up what has been specified in the recurring setup. So I'm just going to go back there. So yeah, just to touch on that briefly again, is you've got your recurring invoices, so you can set it up either to do it as a draft, so meaning if you set it up as a draft, you will need to go in and actually allocate that to a tax invoice. You can edit that at any time. Otherwise, you've got your automatic option. Your automatic option means the system does it for you. So on that specific date, it will send an email to your customer and it will also CC you in it, depending if you've set it up that way. So that's pretty much on a recurring side on how to set up recurring invoices. It makes life a lot easier, if I could say so, due to the fact that lots of things do happen, the same things do happen from month to month or even within the same month. So this makes it just easier instead of actually going and creating a customer tax invoice from scratch. So make use of this if something is continuous and there's the same thing that happens whether it be weekly, fortnightly or monthly. Okay, so that's pretty much on the recurring invoice side of things. What I'm going to do now is I actually want to show you how to allocate payments in My Business Online. As you're aware, with My Business Online, you do have the option to import your bank statements. When importing your bank statements, you can actually go and allocate it to your relevant customers, your suppliers, or even your accounts. But many times what happens is because customers pay small amounts at one go, they don't pay for specific invoices, you can actually go and allocate payments. So to say that a specific invoice was paid. So in case, I'm actually going to go through and then we can, as we go along, go through that. Import bank statements. So whether you're importing your bank statement or whether you're just processing your banks and credit cards, either way is going to be the same. However, importing your bank statement does make it a bit easier instead of recapturing that complete bank statements. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm working with a specific bank account. From there, I'm going to select my file format. In my case, I'm working with a CSV file. I'm actually going to indicate, I can see I'm working according to day, month, year. So I'll actually go and indicate that, day, month, year, and then I'll browse for my file. So I'll see my file there. And then from there, I'm going to import my file. Okay, so it's imported everything on my bank statement. So you can go and specify exactly what this is. I mean, interest received, you can go and allocate that. The main things that I am going to look at, so I'm actually going to remove that, bank charges. Okay, I mean, you can allocate it to your relevant account and then to an expense account. So insurance, I've got, okay, so I've got A&G Consultants there. I know that is one of my customers, so I'm going to, from my selection, I'm going to go and select AG Consultants. What's nice is you can tell the system also map it, so you can say map every time you see that, the description can remain exactly the same, so I'll just put it as that, and then I'll save it. So the system will automatically go and allocate it every time to that. And same, I can do the same with insurance. Okay, Beck and Associates, I know is also one of my customers. Okay, and then from there, that is also one of my customers. So this is just allocating it. And like I said, map it. If you map it the first time, thereafter, the system will automatically import the bank statement and start allocating it to the relevant customers. Okay, so I've got bunches for Africa. From there, I've Kim, I know is also one of my customers. Okay, there I've got Kim Jones. Okay, also one of my customers. John, and also one of my customers. Okay. Okay, so now everything has been allocated here. Like I said, if you map it, it does grade out. And then you won't have to do it again. So what I can do is just actually say process in this. Okay, it's asking me, okay, what I'm going to do is just for those purposes, I actually just want to work with the customers because we are in the end allocating payments for the customers. So I'm going to clear all of these. And I'm going to process it. Okay, so that has been processed now. So now what I need to do is I actually need to go and say, okay, fine, you know what? I need to go and allocate those payments to specific invoices because I don't want the system just to automatically reduce that customer's balance. I want to go and say that payment was for that specific invoice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go customer, allocate receipts. So like I said, whether you're doing it as importing a bank statement or you're processing your banks and credit cards, it doesn't really matter, exactly the same process except your bank statement, you're importing it. So from here, I'm actually going to select my customer. Okay, so you'll see on this customer, these are all the invoices that are unallocated, and from here I've got the receipts. So what I can actually do is go and indicate, so let's say this payment was for this specific one, so what I can do is just take that and drag it across. So what I need to do is you actually need to see the green part, so that the circle with the green tick, and then simply just drop it into there. So what we'll do is we'll actually tell you how much is due now. So let's say the customer underpaid by 31.99 Rand for that specific invoice. Then I've also got an option where I've got quite a high payment here. So what I can actually do is go and indicate. So let's say it was for that specific invoice. I can just drop it into there. Then you'll see the system will reduce, well, it will deduct that certain amount, but it will also leave the outstanding amounts that is left. So what you can do is actually go and allocate it to other invoices. So drag it, drop it into that. So it will still remain there until it becomes 0. Okay, so from there, let's say drop it into there. So it really depends on what the payment was for. So you've allocated all those receipts now. So they've been allocated. So from there, you can just save it. Okay, I'm just waiting for that to save. Okay, so now you'll go and see if you actually go and view your customer reports, you can actually go customer transactions, select the specific customer that we're working with now, and then date range, we could say monthly, current month, and then from there, view reports. Review the complete one. Okay, I see I've already created my new financial year, so I just need to go to last year, select my relevant customer, and then view reports. Okay, so you'll see now it will actually indicate customer receipts. So all my tax invoices, customer receipts, and then I'll see what the outstanding amount is. So let's just go through that again. I'm going to do another one of the clients. So let's say allocate payments. Go and select my specifics. So let's say bunches for Africa. Okay, so I can see a payment of 35,000 Rand was made. So what I'll do is, if it's not for a specific amount, I can actually just drag it to the relevant one. So the thing is, you only need to do this in a scenario where payments are made for specific invoices. Otherwise, what happens is if you allocate it to that customer, it will automatically start reducing the balance. So this is if you want to go and allocate, you want to say, okay, that's what the payment was for and that. Then you actually have an option of that. Okay, so let's say you incorrectly allocate an invoice. You can actually just take it from where it's selected, drag it across, and it actually becomes green, and then you just drop it back into there. So you can do it with any one of them. Just drag and then drop. So even if you do make a mistake, you can actually go and correct it in this sense. So if you do allocate a payment to an invoice, but it wasn't the correct invoice, just go and select it and then drag it across till it becomes green. So you need to see that green tick for you to know that it is actually going to move it across. And once that's done, you can actually just save it. So I'm going to leave that payment just lying there. Okay, and we'll actually list all your receipts that have been made, and also the reference and then the date that has occurred. So that's pretty much on an allocating payment side. Whether you're doing it via bank, processing banks or credit card, you'd exactly go and specify receipts, description, so who it's from. You can put in your customer from there, go and indicate the specific customer, and from your selection go and select the relevant customer account. And then you can put in the amount. So either way you go, whether you're going to process or you're importing that bank statement, exactly the same. And then from there you'll go allocate the receipts to the specific invoices. Otherwise, when setting up your customers, if you don't want to allocate those receipts, you can always on your setup of your customer. So let's say if we are adding a customer now, you'll see that there's an option where it says actually automatically allocate receipts to oldest invoice. So the system will automatically reduce the balance. Otherwise, if you remove that, then yes, you would need to go and allocate those payments. So just ensure what you do set up there and whether you want to allocate those receipts or not. That's pretty much, I'm just going to sum up a bit of what we have discussed today. We've discussed setting up your customer recurring invoices. You've got two options when setting that up. Either you set it up as a draft or otherwise you set it up automatically. As a draft, that means you would go and link it to a tax invoice. If you need to add something, you can always add something, but it does default to your original setup of your recurring invoice. Otherwise, you've got an automatic option. Automatic is quite nice because it sends it out on that specific date. It sends it out to your customer. And then also, if you have an option, if you want to CC yourself, you can actually do that. So those are the major differences. But what's nice is you've got the different options on how to set it up. So whether it happens on a daily basis, a weekly, a fortnightly, a monthly, even second month, I mean, you can go to a point of every year. So, I mean, initially you can go in and start setting up all of these things. And it makes just your life a bit easier. So even if you do set it up as a draft, you can just go into your customer, customer tax invoice, and then add tax invoice, and then you'll see there is an option where either you can select a quote that's been created, otherwise a recurring invoice. And when you drop down on that, it will actually bring up all your recurring invoices if you've set up more than 2 for one customer. Otherwise, if you've just got one, you can actually just drop down and select that recurring invoice. And then from there, you can actually add lines or even delete or reduce the quantity. And once that's done, just process print or otherwise process and email it through to the clients. Then just on an allocating payment side of things, you can import your bank statements or otherwise process your banks or credit cards, depending on which means you do use. I go with the import bank statement option because that's very much easier, just creating your bank statement and then from there importing it. So go select your format, whether it be CSV or OFX, browse, search for the folder, and then from there allocate it to your different customers or your selection. So, I mean, in some cases, when you're importing a bank statement, you're going to have a lot more than what I had previously. But for this session, I have only focused on customer side for allocating it. So once you've done that, you can actually process it, and then from there, go to your customer option, and then allocate those receipts. Like I said, if you've set up your customer to automatically allocate that payment to the oldest invoice, then the system will automatically reduce the amount. If not, you can actually go and allocate those payments to specific invoices, because in many cases, a customer will make a payment for a specific invoice. So you can actually go and allocate that just to keep track of what has and what hasn't been paid. I'm just going to have a look if there's any questions. I've got a question from Camille. It says, once the invoice is saved, does it mean it is posted? Camille, it depends on the date that you've set up and also the way you've set it up. So whether you've set it up as a draft, then no, it's not automatically posted due to the fact that you would actually need to go and link it to your tax invoice and then from there process it and email it through to the clients. If you did do it automatic, depending on the date that you've set it up, so the system always forces you to select a date. So if I'm on the 9th, the system will force me to select the 10th as my next processing or where a recurring invoice can take place. So if you do make a mistake and you actually need to go and fix it, you can still go before the 10th and actually correct that if you do set it up on an automatic basis. I hope that does answer your question, Camille. I've got a question from Colin. I want to change the date of the recurring invoice saved as draft. Okay, so what you can do is you can actually go to your customers recurring invoices. You will see there's an option where it says either you can edit or you can delete the recurring invoice. So if I go edit, I can actually edit that, and then if I need to change the dates, I can actually change the dates. And then also change the selection. So you can go in and actually change that column. All you need to do is just go into customer recurring invoices, go and view the relevant one, select edit, and then you can change the dates. I hope that answers your question, Colin. I'm just going through the next question. I've got a question from Wendy. Wendy wants to know if it's possible to set up recurring supply invoices for things like rent and stuff. I think, Wendy, this is quite important where the bank manager comes quite handy in a sense for all those, like your rent and all those expenses that happen on a continuous basis. What you can do is actually go to your banking option, import that bank statement within the first time you import that bank statement, already go and allocate. So if you've got a telecom, as one of your expenses, go and link it to your expense account, to your telephone account. And then from there on, month to month, you actually import and the system allocates it. And I mean, in a sense that it's not recurring invoices, however, it does already allocate it. So it's not like you have to do much from your side except, exporting the bank statement and then importing it in on your side. I hope that answers your question, Wendy. So I think your best option on that would be, to import your bank statements, map the transactions, and then from there you won't really have to do a duplicate. So it's exactly the same means that you're doing, except you're importing the bank statement and then from there allocating it. I've got a question from Heidi. She wants to know, do I still have to allocate it if I've done a receipt? As I indicated, Heidi, either you have an option, you can allocate it to a specific invoice. If you set up your customer to take that receipt and allocate it to the last outstanding invoice, then no, you don't have to allocate it. So it depends really on how you want to set up your company in that sense. And then I've got another question from Heidi. Does the receipt not automatically allocate? It does automatically allocate to that system, but it will just reduce the balance. So it won't be for a specific invoice. So that's the only reason where you'd allocate it, is if you want to say a certain payment is for that certain invoice. Otherwise, the system is just going to reduce the balance. I've got a question from Belinda. She wants to know, can you import bank statements and process some payments manually as well? Yes, you can do that. You've got both options. So once you import your bank statements, you can actually, so let's just go to that screen. I'm going to select my CSV, date, month, year, browse. I just want to select that file of mine. Imports. Okay, so once you've actually imported your bank statement, if you want to go and add more transactions, that's where you've got the option to go banking and then process banks and credit cards. From there, you can actually go and select your receipts and go and add, let's say, a description. So there might have been a cash payment from one of your clients. So let's say James. You can go and select to your different customer, and then from your selection, go and select John. So your bank statement is just purely imports what's happened on your bank statement. If you need to add more, you can actually just go banking, process banks and credit cards, and then from there add the additional transactions. Belinda, I hope that answers your question. I'm just going through a few more of the questions. I've got a question from Richard. I'm just trying to quickly understand. Richard's question is, if you need to send an invoice now and also want it to be a recurring invoice, is there a way to send a recurring invoice now? The system will actually, if you have a look, when you're actually setting up that recurring invoice, the system does ask you to indicate a day after. So that's the closest range that you could actually go. So what I would suggest is setting up that recurring invoice. Then once that recurring invoice is set it up for the month after, if you're running on a monthly basis, and then actually go and specify that tax invoice only for that month, because in the following month you'll work on your recurring invoices.
Thank you for joining us for this My Business Online webinar. If you found it useful, please visit the Pastel website to find out about future My Business Online webinars or training courses. Alternatively, contact us on sales@pastelmybusiness.co.za.